Hello and welcome to Nothing Definitive. My name is Sam, and this is a journal entry for today, April 29th, 2014. In a neuroplasticity script I'm writing for an upcoming experiment that I want to do, I mentioned zero tolerance when it comes to giving up unhealthy desires and addictions. This is an important point because you're trying to reduce the strength of the neurons associated with a specific craving you're fighting, and yet every time you reward yourself with the target of your addiction, you actually end up strengthening that node anyway, or at least returning it to its original value. You need to think of this differently than you might intuitively. This doesn't work by being good for a week. Throw that idea out. It's useless. Imagine this node is lit up in your normal life because you regularly reinforce it with sweets, say. It's very strong and bright compared to most nodes. You decide to go on a diet and only have sweets on Sundays as part of your day off, a reward for being good. This sounds reasonable to most humans. During the week, you stay true to your goal, and this node begins to dim. By Saturday, it's much dimmer than it was originally, but still glowing brighter than the nodes around it. It's still an addiction. On Sunday, you reward yourself and the node returns to full brightness because it doesn't take much to remind it who it is. Now, you might actually be making some progress, don't get me wrong, but it's probably negligible. If we made up some numbers, for instance, imagine the starting maxed out node is at 100% power prior to your diet. After a week of dieting, it might be down to 90%, but when you eat that sweet on Sunday, it recharges it to 99%. Sure, you made some overall progress, but it might take a year to get even close to taking control of it, to change it from an addiction to something you don't really think about. And in the meantime, you're surrounded by temptations and holidays and friends who want to eat sweets. You're going to fail. You're setting yourself up to fail. That's why zero tolerance is the best way to achieve goals like this. You have to completely eliminate your addiction or else you'll relapse. You would never take a bet like this because the odds are horrible. And this is a small issue in the grand scheme of things. If you can't defeat this, then your real dreams are really far from you. And you might as well just give up. I know that sounds mean, but you really have to want to change and move forward. And you shouldn't leave little things like this in your way. They're like tests, kind of. The big issues in life are much harder and require untold willpower that dieting pales in comparison to. So get mad, show me that I'm wrong. Otherwise, you'll always be a victim to yourself. So here's a strategy to try instead. Find something else that is addicting to other people, but not you, and rewarding to your brain. And do this instead. I know this might sound like bad advice, but I don't think it is. For 1 week, every time you crave sweets, drink coffee. The next week, every time you crave sweets, play video games. Be creative, whatever it is. These are rewarding activities for your brain, and since you haven't strengthened those neurons in the past, you can enjoy them without getting immediately addicted, and yet might be rewarding enough to fight the cravings that you actually struggle from. The point is to give yourself rewarding alternatives that are distinctly different from the craving you're trying to beat. If you're really strong-willed, the best advice is probably to just quit cold turkey with no alternatives besides other good habits and just fight it. But that's really hard, and I don't expect most people to do that when they're busy and stressed out already. I can't imagine coming home from a long day of work only to take up activities that are taxing to your brain and your willpower. This isn't necessarily about becoming a superhuman, but just reducing addictions that are unhealthy, things that have gone from a fun pastime to consuming all your time. And really try and understand this idea that everything you do is training your brain to expect it more often and eventually want it more often. Whether that be eating or taking drugs, watching TV, playing video games, whatever, your brain is going to desire it at some point, and eventually it will be an addiction. That's why this applies not only to drugs, but all sorts of activities. Before I leave, I want to mention one area of contention people might bring up, and that's that there are plenty of examples of people in life that are rich and famous and also overweight or addicted to drugs or whatever. That's absolutely true, and in some cases, say comedians for example, their vices are almost a source of power and inspiration. There are exceptions here. It's just, what do you want? I would imagine most of these people still consider their vices an addiction or struggle. Some of them die from it. Some of them are ruined by it. Most people would probably be better off without them and more happy in the long run. So yes, there are people that may benefit from not changing, but for the vast majority of us, conquering things is a source of strength and progress. So that's what I want to talk about. I actually don't really have anything else to say today, so thank you very much for listening as always. Please consider subscribing, sharing, liking. If you disliked it, let me know why in the comments, and I'll try and make improvements in the future. Otherwise, see you next time.